Hi guys, and welcome to the Saucy Chef's channel today. So, today I'm going to show you how to make spinach and pine nut croquettes. They're a very popular thing here in Spain, usually served along with other tapas. I'm not going to fib and say they're easy to make, they are, apart from the shaping of them. So I'm going to show you the ingredients we need. In the frying pan here I've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil heating up on a medium heat. I've got 250 grams of fresh baby leaf spinach that's been wilted, drained, water squeezed out and then chopped very finely. I've got 2 tablespoons of pine nuts. Whenever normally I'm doing a recipe with pine nuts, I will toast them first, but I've tried doing that with this recipe and the flavour is too strong, so don't toast them, okay? We also need 2 cloves of crushed garlic, half a finely chopped onion, 75 grams of flour, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and in this jug here I've got a mixture of 120 ml of vegetable stock and 400 ml of whole milk. If you want to make this a completely vegan recipe, you can use a plant-based milk, but make sure it's unsweetened. You're also going to need some breadcrumbs and a beaten egg and the rest of the milk in the recipe mixed together to coat the croquettes once they're shaped and then fry them. But I like to leave these overnight. Once we've made the filling for them, I like to leave it overnight so that it solidifies a lot more and it makes them an awful lot easier to handle and to shape. Okay, so it's important also to get these measurements and quantities correct, and then you end up with the correct consistency of the sauce. Normally, if you're talking about making croquettes, they're usually a potato-based recipe, but the Spanish do theirs with a thick bechamel sauce, and they're absolutely delicious, honestly. You can make various different varieties of them. Today, like I've said, it's going to be spinach and pine nut, but you can do ham-on, you can do goat's cheese, you can do prawn, all different varieties, but this basic method is the same way you would do them all anyway, okay? So in go the onions into the oil. So I'm just going to turn the heat down slightly. Okay, and what we want to do is saute the onion until it's nice and soft. And then we add the garlic to this, but don't add the garlic straight away because garlic burns so easily. All you need to do is make sure it's just sauteed for about a minute, and that's plenty for the garlic. Yeah, if you wanted to make different varieties of these croquettes, such as ham-on, you would have about 100 grams of finely chopped ham-on, goat's cheese about the same, chopped up into tiny pieces, and prawns, again, use the raw prawns and have them very, very finely chopped. You can also do a gambas pil-pil version, where if you look at my recipe for gambas pil-pil, marinate the prawns in the olive oil recipe that I've given you, but don't put the olive oil in. Take the prawns out, they will take the flavour from the oil, and then you can chop them finely as well, and that turns out delicious too. But this spinach and pine nut one is one of my absolute favourites. I've tried various different ways of doing them, and this recipe is just lovely, honestly. So the onions are beginning to soften now. Yeah, just a couple of minutes, and that's all it takes. So now we're going to add the garlic. You can actually just leave this mixture once it's made for about 4 hours, but I much prefer to leave it overnight because, like I said before, the difficult thing about this is the shaping of them, and it tends to solidify more if you leave it overnight and becomes an awful lot easier to handle. So that's what I'm going to do anyway, but it's up to you. Okay, so these are softening nicely now. Lovely smell of onion and garlic. Okay, and this is when we add the flour. So I'm going to sift it in, just gradually. And at first you'll find this goes really, really lumpy. Nothing to worry about, that's honestly quite normal. And all we want to do with the flour is make sure that it cooks a little bit so that that raw flour taste goes. See, it's just gone into sort of solidified lumps with the onion and garlic here, but that's nothing to worry about at this stage. If you're going to be making different varieties such as ham on, you can use chicken stock instead of vegetable. You can make this recipe completely vegan. I'm going to use, when we actually shape the croquettes and coat them in the breadcrumbs, I'm going to use a beaten egg with mine. But if you want to keep this recipe completely vegan, it does work just using a plant-based milk to coat the croquettes and then add the breadcrumbs. Okay, let's just give that a few more seconds. That's all the flour in now, and it's sort of dried lumps. Doesn't look great, does it? But believe me, it turns out okay. Right, so now the mixture of the vegetable stock and the milk, I'm going to gradually add this. These are great to make in advance as well, and they can actually be frozen, and they cook perfectly from frozen. And there's so much tastier than buying supermarket frozen croquettes. They're just delicious, and you can freeze them for a few weeks in the freezer, and they can be fried straight from frozen. Obviously, it's nicer to do them fresh, but the good thing is about this, because I serve them with lots of other tapas, I can prepare them, say, the day before, and they'll be fine in the fridge for a couple of days. And then you can just fry them and serve them hot, obviously. So here we go with this mix. It's starting to look a little bit more like a sauce now. See? So we keep adding the milk. It's important to have the stock in there as well, because it really gives the croquettes a lovely punchy flavour. You need a good thick base sauce and frying pan for this as well. Can you see how it's coming together now? The flour's absorbing all that milk and stock. So we're going to continue adding. This makes about 20, depending on the size of the croquettes. We usually take a sort of large teaspoon at a time to make each individual croquette, but it does make about 20. Okay, a little bit more again. And like I said, it's really important to make sure you get the measurements for these ingredients correct, and then you end up with the perfect consistency. And then it's easy enough to work with, yet just lovely. Just all coming together really nicely now. Okay, when I've added all the milk, I'll come back to you in a second and then show you the consistency. Okay guys, so I've now added all the milk and stock mixture, and can you see this? It's a smooth sauce. The lumps you can see aren't lumpy pieces of flour, it's just the onions in there. And this is when I add the nutmeg, the pine nuts and the spinach. I've now turned the heat off, because we don't really need to cook it any further at this stage. Just give it a really good mix. And can you see how thick that sauce is, guys? That's the sort of consistency you're looking for. And you probably think, oh, I'd never be able to handle and shape that. But once it's been left overnight, honestly, you can. Okay, so in goes the spinach. Like I said, I've finely chopped this. You can use frozen spinach if you want, but fresh is much nicer. You just have to follow the instructions on the frozen spinach packet if you wanted to use that. But fresh is really so much nicer. Okay. So So this is the sort of consistency we have. I'm going to test it now for a seasoning. I never put any in before because you don't know how strong the stock's going to taste in it, and it might actually not need any. That little bit of nutmeg just gives it that lovely flavour, because nutmeg and spinach go great together. So let me just have a little sample now and see. Tiniest bit, literally the tiniest bit. So do your seasoning at this point, because you don't want to have it over seasoned. Okay, I'm just going to give that a good stir now. Have a look at that, guys. So that's the sort of consistency you're looking for. Okay, I'm going to transfer this into a bowl, let it cool, cover it well, and then I'm going to leave it overnight. Like I said to you, you can actually leave it for 4 hours and it'll be okay, but overnight it really does develop that solidity and make it an awful lot easier to handle. So I'll leave you for now, and I'll see you when it's been refrigerated, and I'll show you how to finish off the process. See you shortly. Okay guys, so this mixture has been solidifying in the fridge nicely overnight, and it makes it much more easy to handle. So I've got here some beaten egg and milk, which I've seasoned, and some breadcrumbs here. Okay, so the way we go about this is make sure your hands are really clean. Oil your hands, just lightly. You may have to repeat doing this 2 or 3 times during the process. And then you get a sort of large teaspoon of the mixture. Can you see how it's solidified now? And it makes it much, much easier to handle. So then we start to shape it into a sort of egg or tubular shape, whichever you prefer, like so. And then it first of all goes into the breadcrumbs. Like so. And then into the egg mix. I use a spoon just to turn this over rather than handling it. And then once again back into the breadcrumbs. As I was saying earlier, if you wanted this to be a vegan recipe, then obviously you would omit the egg. I like to add the egg because it gives a nicer, crisper coating for the croquettes. But it does actually work with just milk. And a really good plant-based milk to use is hemp milk. It's got a fabulous flavour to it, and it's got all of the essential amino acids in, etc. So it's really, really healthy for you. So, like I said, this should make about 20 croquettes. I'll just show you how to do 1 or 2 before we move on. And then you'll need some oil in a heavy bottom frying pan so that we can fry these. Once we've actually prepared them all, I think I mentioned before that you can actually put them in the refrigerator for a couple of days and then fry them ready so that you've prepared them in advance, or they freeze brilliantly as well. So put them in the freezer. They'll last about 2 or 3 weeks in the freezer, and then you can cook them straight from frozen. When you're cooking them like this, they only take about 1.5 minutes each side. But when you're cooking from frozen, I would advise about 3 minutes on each side, but only on a medium heat. You need to make sure you're not going to burn them. Okay, so breadcrumbs, egg, and then breadcrumbs again. Okay, and we're going to repeat this process until all the mixture is used, so I'll see you in a moment. Okay guys, so actually I've made a few more than 20, there's about 22 here, so obviously it does depend on the size of croquettes that you're making. So I've got a heavy bottomed frying pan here with the oil in quite deep, and I've set it to a medium heat. So what we're going to do is pop these in, do them in batches, don't try and fit all 20 in at once because it's a little bit too many. And I'm going to put them in clockwise so he knows which ones I've got in first. So 12 o'clock, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, So obviously the oil has just started to sizzle away now. You don't want it too hot because you want to make sure that they're heated through properly before we turn them on the other side, and we don't want them to burn on the outside. So it's just starting to give a real sizzle to it now. So like I said, about 1.5 minutes on each side. Do them in 2 batches and turn them over. What you want is a lovely golden brown look, and I'll show you when this first lot is done. Okay, see you in a moment. So as you can see, they've started to brown nicely on one side. So I've started turning them all, like so. They're already smelling really good, actually. You need to have some kitchen paper ready on a plate as well once these are done, because you do want to drain the excess oil off. Okay, so they're all turned now, and that's the sort of colour they should be looking like when you're about to turn them. Like so. Okay, so just 1.5 minutes on that side, and then I'm going to take them out of the pan, see in a moment. Okay, so this is the cooked version here. I've just finished the second batch over here. What I wanted to do is cut into one and show you what they look like on the inside, because they are just delicious, these. So take a lovely crispy coating on the outside, and just look at the inside of that. How beautiful are they? Okay, so there we have it, spinach and pine nut croquettes, ladies and gentlemen. So if you've enjoyed watching the video today, please like and share and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.